This is Defacto Review, where we run down the top news from the last week, and then we debate what happens next. Hi, I'm Terrence Edwards, and with us tonight is our host, Jargal Defacto.
Good evening. Instead of 8:30, we had to change our program because there is a regulation by Election Commission to monitor all TV advertisements due to this very tough law. And they asked everybody to have this TV commercials for these candidates during certain time that they can control. So again, they are intervening into our right to show our program on time. But however we go now, but for the sake of having this our program, we go a little bit earlier today at 5:30, and you can see this program from tomorrow on my website, jargaldefacto.com, in English as well.
Yeah, of course, we want to comply with all Mongolia's laws, but we also want to deliver the straight news to you viewers.
We want to do our job, no?
Yeah. Will it be broadcast at 8 o'clock as well, or only?
No, unfortunately, at 8 o'clock, they need to make advertisement. All TV is changing their schedule.
Sure.
Why? Because this election commission want to control all the advertisement to be on a certain time.
Sure.
So that it's easier for them to control.
Okay, even I'm learning just now, folks.
I'm not happy with this program at all.
Yeah.
With this schedule, sorry.
Yeah, everything's good with us. But we'll work with the rules we have, and we'll make a good show for you all. So let's move on, Jargal. Let's look at what we have to talk about today.
Saikhanbileg government vows to buy 30% of citizens' Tolgoi shares. Voters are left at a loss for which candidates to cast for in the 2016 election. Campaign season kicks off for the 2016 parliamentary elections. Government prepares for ASEM summit in July.
We begin with the elections. Those knocks on your doors, those billboards on the street, they can only mean one thing. It's election season in Mongolia. Candidates will have 18 days to promote themselves for the 76 seats up for grabs on Election Day on June 29th. That window opportunity has been criticized as too short by some observers who complain that really the odds are in the favor of the incumbents who voters best know. We also see a slew of celebrity and athletic candidates for the 20 seats now up for grabs that were just recently made due to the new changes in the election law. So Jargal, there's not much time for these candidates to really introduce themselves to voters. So what strategies do you expect to see utilized by these guys?
You know, Terrence, first of all, this 18 days came in the new law last time.
December.
Yeah, because these two political parties who are ruling or the majority seats in the parliament, they really doing their best to have the candidates, in particular from non-their party candidates, independent candidates, have as short as possible time for advertisement or campaigning. As a result, we have very less opportunity to know, to learn about them. And they have very limited time on TV, and that's the problem. And so people have no chance to know them better. Yet the two political institutions, parties, they do much better, of course, more. They experience it, they have way wide advertisement. And you can see now all around in every corner of the city, nearby your home, you see candidates. Mostly they are representing two political parties which have more money as institutions. By the way, we don't know how much money they have because they don't report to public. In Mongolia, political parties, election campaign and political parties financing are some kind of taboo that nobody knows. And I believe some their own party members don't know too.
You know, there's that old adage, time is money. I think looking at this political scene, it could be adjusted to time is votes. So we have 18 days for promotion. Do you know of is there even a possibility in this short time for localities to have public debate, town hall forums, some way for the politicians to all get together, introduce themselves at the same time to the voters?
Every candidate has kind of own headquarters for election campaign headquarters. Mm-hmm. And depending on the money they have, they locations, of course the best locations are already chosen by political parties, and the independent candidates, they try their best. Yeah. But of course the turnover is completely different. And there are already some disappointment, of course, by many independent candidates, because they try to organize meetings, public meetings on square, in the street, somewhere where the different people show up. But however, it's going to be very interesting contest, because people are kind of tired with many political figures who are representing these two major political parties. But people are a lot frustrated with the parties, with two major parties who in turn takes power and run for 4 years, and then, or sometimes mostly they go in a coalition nowadays, and that means we have no opposition. So as a result, we have not very good public governance, and there's no way to oppose or to monitor them. So I think political life in Mongolia is to continue in the same manner as it was before, unfortunately.
You know, I think the public debate is quite also important, because, you know, you may know a candidate, but you want to see how they go toe-to-toe with their competitors. And also, these debates also give voters chance to really take a minute and think about these issues from another side. You know, you've always heard from the incumbents how they want to present things. So it's really important that the competitors get a chance to introduce their ideas and then challenge the incumbents how they would react to those, or whether they agree.
Yep, I agree.
We're moving on, but sticking with the election.
Yep.
Concerns are growing over whether voters will be informed enough about the candidates running for election in the June 29th election. As we just stated, voters have 13 parties and 3 coalitions to choose from, in addition to 74 independents that will be on the ballots. This year, about a quarter of all candidates are female. There's also a split of 283 candidates running for office in Mongolia's provinces, and 215 for the districts in Ulaanbaatar. To some, this year's contest is really a 2-horse race, where the election rules have been changed to favor the 2 biggest parties, the Democratic Party, the Mongolian People's Party. So what I like to see is that Parliament have a fair and accurate representation of society. Do you think the parties are giving enough choices where we can have a representation of a fair number of women's, and then even going further to some of the minority groups in Mongolia, such as the Kazakhs?
Yeah, you know, previous law says that this 20% of the women to be candidates, or parliament candidates always, and then they want to change it to from 30 to 20. And now, as a result, today we have relatively more people running. So 1/4 of candidates are female. And in that sense, I think as a candidates, the women are more or less there. But of course, it could be a half of them in the best case, because half of the population could
society.
So that's why I think still females candidates are represented less. I think down the road we would have more, hopefully, and we should have at least 1/4 of the candidates, quarter of parliament members, we expect to be elected, but it looks like not, because just out of candidate, only one quarter are females.
Yeah.
In terms of Kazakhs and other nationality, we have one minority in that sense, Kazakhs. In Kazakh, Bayinulgi Aymak, where the majority of Kazakhs live, they have from two major political parties. On all these constituencies, we are represented by Kazakh candidates. So hopefully it will be the same as it was before in terms of the nationality minority. But remember, overall, we have so many candidates for 70. We have total, for 76 seats, almost 500 people running. And that's a lot. So it will be very hard for people to understand their candidates, because they are from the political parties and then independent, smaller parties, then independents. So due to reasons we have just now described, independent candidates have very less chance to show themselves. So they have to have extraordinary effort to get them understood, known.
Yeah, I think the main worry is voters will go to the ballots that day and they'll look at their options and they'll say, who are these people? What am I voting for? Yep. So is there any advice you can give to our viewers who might be looking for information about the candidates running for their district?
Yeah, I just, when I was doing the review in Mongolian, I told them that it will be so strange if singers are doing political works, politicians are singing. Yeah. And that's what the case is about in Mongolia. And it is not only, to be politicians is not only a matter of your effort, but it's an issue of capacity. And if you have been singing all your life, when you have enough time to get education, political science, or to amend laws or to make laws, so it is a requirement. It's kind of job requirements even we need, you know. That's why I'm suggesting now for not only political candidates, but also for Mongolian ministers to have job descriptions, to have certain job qualifications. You know, only meeting certain qualifications, you can be a minister in the country. Unfortunately, it is not the case. And you know, we have a very funny now saying in the among the people about the ministers, etc. They say that in Mongolia, when you mobilize soldiers, you check their health conditions, but we don't do it with so many candidates. Yeah. And also in Mongolia, when you hire a janitor or a cleaner, you check their diploma, but we don't do it. When the guy is coming a minister, we don't check even a diploma, whether this person has a diploma or not. So there are several cases, and country is going to discuss it, even in case of one candidate who has no diploma, but who told. Yeah. Cheated, and now the legal cases have arisen.
It's really important, but we got to move on to the next topic. We're looking at more outreach to the voters, specifically from the government. The government says it's ready to buy back 30% of Citizens' 1,072 shares for state-owned mining unit Tavan in the weeks before the election. The Tavan mine has been littered with setbacks, heavy debt, and broken investment deals since commercial operations launched in 2011. Some people are still holding on to their shares that were issued in 2012, who decided they would rather hold on to them than receive an immediate cash payout. Shares were only allowed to be sold for that short time, however, that is until today, where Prime Minister Saikhanbileg has announced that citizens will be able, for a second opportunity, to sell their shares, about a third of their shares, or 323, for 300,000 tugrik. These shares will only be sold to the government, not to private investors. So, Jargal, last week we talked about a tiny hike in social payments, and your final decision was this looks like grabs for votes. looking at this separate issue, it's more money going to the voters. Is this another payout for votes?
It is. It is. Total 1.5 million people, 1.6 million people have those shares, and now government is suggesting to buy shares, let's say about 1,000 shares per person.
Sure.
They want to buy 300,000 Turiks, or they want to buy only 30% of
300
value they have initially suggested. Two concerns. One is these shares were not issued as a classical shares, because classical shares are coming to raise funds, but these shares come to raise political votes, I think, from the beginning. And now they are buying back under this so-called very beautiful way. They are giving, in a way, cash to the people. That's how I found it. So I think it's in a bigger way, very populistic step, violating the law that you cannot buy votes. And that's the case, the ruling party. The idea was suggested by People's Party. And they even suggested to buy all million of them, the shares, 1,000 of shares, with million Turiks. But the ruling party, People's Democratic Party, accepted their proposal, and then they want to buy 30% back. So it's an issue of value. If it is real value, true value, as the government are suggesting, then why you should sell your real value of 1,000 things for 300,000? Maybe it's about time for many people to wait and to sell it afterwards. So it caused a lot of conflict, and it caused a lot of debates in the country. But overall, the ruling party is trying to buy votes with cash under the so beautiful name of shares.
And I think the main issue with whether to sell or hold on to your shares is this a good price, as you brought up. Now, we won't know until there's an initial public offering for Ernest Tavan, which is planned either for the Mongolian Stock Exchange or foreign exchanges, or perhaps both. What do you think of, where it was 2011 when we went to commercial operations? They were hoping for initial public offering to come soon after, but the investment deals broke down, which delayed things. So what do you think of the possibilities that there will eventually be a public offering of this really important state entity?
In Mongolia in general, we want to have, instead of state-owned companies, to be public companies where people can buy shares and sell shares. And unfortunately, which is not happening, and even they want to sell public company only at the beginning, only 30%.
Yeah.
With 30% public ownership, 30% people ownership, 70% state ownership. This kind of public share companies don't very well perform because still the state controls 70%. In case of Tavan Tolgoi, we want this one to really be on the international exchange, international stock exchange, so that the people know the true value of this. So, and whatever value is on the market, the people know that out of these whatever shares, you own 1,000 of them. And today, 300 of them will be good or not good. Nobody can say, because we don't see the fair value that is usually stated by stock exchange, selling and purchasing prices.
We move on from the elections and go towards the Asia-Europe summit. The Asia-Europe meeting that has been consuming so many officials' minds. Government officials and companies are scrambling to get everything set for the hundreds of delegates from abroad that will be arriving in Ulaanbaatar in July. The Asia-Europe meeting will be one of the biggest for Mongolia's history, with many heads of states and other high-level officials coming to the country. Just last week, on June 9th and 10th, there was the ASEM, or Asia-Europe meeting, finance ministers meeting, where they were gathered at the government palace from 42 countries. Delegates from 42 countries were gathered at the government palace. There was also 13 heads of banks and other financial institutions. So we hear a lot about ASEM in the recent months, really since last year. What is the significance of this international event to Mongolia?
ASEM is itself a large event, but for a country like Mongolia, it's even larger. And other than Ulaanbaatar, many capitals, almost every day they receive 5,000 or 6,000 guests anyway. Because it's new, because this economy is small, it's a very significant event for this country. But however, my thought would be it could be organized in September, actually. Why? Because all tour companies are complaining that during Nadam days, all tours by normal people to Mongolia are cancelled. No flights, no hotels, everything is taken by ASEM. So considering everything possible, you could do it in September, late September, so that we receive all our tourists that we're supposed to receive this year, and we continue that tourism extension 1 month further. That could be a good idea. But I think for politicians, it's a matter of having them while they are in power. And the funny thing is, I think by Nadam Day, I don't think the new government will be formed. The current government and current politicians will be in charge of ASEM events. The other thing is, with the Minister of Finance event, it's one of the key events that started to happen before High Summit, because at the summit, when the 2020 almost 50 countries heads or their representatives come into the country, they talk about they update each other about the bilateral and multilateral relations. So it is important because the Ministry of Finance meet. It's important to have ministries of finance meet before that summit. So it happened here today, as usual, as it was before. And also, there is international development institutions heads. We're here, IMF, World Bank, Asia Development Bank. But the first time we have seen the head of Asia Infrastructure Investment Bank, mostly majority shares owned by China, came to Mongolia, and that man had met the minister, the Mongolian Prime Minister. That is, I think, a difference compared with the last year in other countries.
That's great stuff. We're running out of time though, so we got to wrap up.
Yep, okay.
So that's our program for the evening. We hope our briefings give you viewers a heads up on Monday morning for how to handle the rest of the week. Any closing words?
We hope that during the election we cannot have all our programs on time, but we will try to do that on even a different available time. And you can rewatch the program on jargaldefacto.com from tomorrow. And please send us email as well so that we can improve our work. But we try to give you an independent from politicians, political parties, view on major events of the last week. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jargal. Good night, Ulaanbaatar.
Thank you.